When we moved into our new neighborhood in Portland, Oregon, we thought everything would be calm and ordinary. My name is Rachel Martin, and my husband Daniel and I had just bought our first home on the corner of Alderwood Street. It was a quiet street with kids playing basketball at the end of the cul-de-sac, couples walking their dogs in the evenings, and the kind of place where neighbors waved at you whether they knew your name or not. Our house was a modest two-story with a white fence that needed painting and a backyard filled with overgrown shrubs that Daniel promised he would trim. We were excited to settle down after years of renting apartments in busy parts of the city. For once, we could breathe. For once, we felt like we belonged somewhere permanent. But almost immediately after moving in, we noticed something strange about the house next door. The man who lived there, his name, we later learned, was Mr. Callahan, always left his upstairs window wide open. Rain or shine, cold or warm, day or night, that window stayed cracked just enough for someone to see inside. At first, we thought nothing of it. Some people just like fresh air, right? But the more time passed, the more unsettling it became. One evening, as I was unpacking boxes in our bedroom, I glanced across and froze. Through that open window, I could see him pacing back and forth, talking to himself. His movements were sharp, almost rehearsed, as though he were practicing a speech or arguing with someone who wasn't there. "Daniel," I whispered, tugging his arm. "Come look at this." He set down the box of books he was carrying and peered out the window beside me.
Huh.
"That's weird." "He does that every night," I told him. "At least every night since we moved in." Daniel tried to laugh it off. Maybe he's an actor. Practicing lines or something. But something in my gut told me it wasn't that simple. Over the next week, the open window scenes became impossible to ignore. Sometimes, Mr. Callahan would be scribbling furiously in a notebook. Other times, he'd just stand completely still, staring out into the night sky like he was lost in another world. And then there were moments that chilled me most of all, when I caught him looking directly across the yard at us. I remember one night vividly. It was almost midnight, and I was up late folding laundry in our bedroom. I glanced across without thinking, and there he was, standing perfectly still in his window, the dim glow of a desk lamp behind him, his eyes fixed on me. My heart raced, and I nearly dropped the shirt in my hands. I quickly turned off the light. The next morning at breakfast, I told Daniel I couldn't shake the feeling that our neighbor wanted us to see him. Daniel sighed. "Rach, you've been watching too many mystery shows." The guy probably just doesn't realize how noticeable it is. But I could tell he was uneasy too. The turning point came when our neighbor, who rarely left his house, finally spoke to us. One Saturday morning, as Daniel was mowing the lawn and I was trimming some roses, Mr. Callahan walked over. He was in his late 40s, with salt and pepper hair and a slight hunch in his shoulders, like he carried invisible weights. "Morning," he said softly, his voice almost hesitant. "Morning," Daniel replied, friendly but cautious. Mr. Callahan looked at me then, his eyes tired but oddly sharp. "You've probably noticed the window." I froze. "Yes," I admitted carefully. "We couldn't help it." He gave a half smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Good. That's the point." And without another word, he turned and walked back into his house. Daniel and I just stared at each other. "What does that even mean?" I whispered. "I don't know," he said, frowning. "But I don't like it." From that day on, we couldn't ignore it anymore. It wasn't just a quirk or habit. He was deliberately leaving that window open so that we or someone could see.
But why?
We started piecing things together like detectives. I noticed that his lights were always on at the strangest hours. Daniel saw him dragging heavy boxes out to the curb late at night, but never putting out normal trash bags like everyone else. Sometimes, faint music drifted from the window. Old records, scratchy jazz tunes from decades ago. It felt like he was staging a performance for an audience he couldn't see. One evening, curiosity got the better of me. I decided to wave at him. Just once, to see what would happen. He was sitting at his desk, writing in that same notebook, when I lifted my hand cautiously. Slowly, he lifted his head and waved back. Not a casual wave. Not neighborly. His hand moved in a slow, deliberate motion, as if acknowledging something unspoken between us. I quickly dropped my arm, goosebumps prickling down my skin. That night, Daniel and I lay awake in bed, whispering about what to do. "Do we call someone?" I asked. "Call who?" he replied. "The police? What would we even say? Our neighbor leaves his window open and waves at us. That's not illegal." He was right. It wasn't illegal, but it was disturbing. The mystery deepened weeks later when I went for a walk around the block and bumped into an older woman named Mrs. Green, who lived a few doors down. She had lived on Alderwood Street for nearly 30 years and seemed to know everyone's story. When I mentioned we lived next to Mr. Callahan, her smile faded. "You should be careful," she said in a hushed tone. "That man's been strange ever since his wife passed away. Never recovered from it. Some say he talks to her like she's still in that house." A chill ran through me. That night, I couldn't help but look again. Through the open window, I saw him sitting at the desk, lips moving silently, as though he were speaking to someone invisible. Occasionally, he would nod, pause, and even laugh softly, as if answering back to a voice only he could hear. Daniel didn't want me watching anymore. "You're going to get obsessed," he warned. But it was too late. I was obsessed. Weeks turned into months, and the open window became part of our daily lives. Sometimes he would wave. Sometimes he'd sit motionless for hours. And sometimes he'd vanish entirely, leaving the light on and the window open like an invitation. I never knew what disturbed me more, when he was there or when he wasn't. The last straw came one stormy night in October. Lightning lit up the sky, and rain pelted the glass. I happened to glance across just as thunder cracked, and for a split second, I saw not one, but two figures in the window. One was Mr. Callahan. The other, I swear, was a woman standing behind him. I blinked, and she was gone. When I told Daniel, he refused to look. "We're not getting dragged deeper into this. He's a lonely man, Rachel. That's all. Don't let your imagination run wild." But deep down, I wasn't sure it was imagination. To this day, Mr. Callahan's window remains open. Sometimes, I still catch him staring across at us, expression unreadable, as though waiting for something. Whether it's grief, madness, or something I can't explain, I don't know. But one thing is certain. He wants us to see. And we always do.